buy into it, it's kind of hypnotic romance.
Yes.
When I watch it, I'm like, am I breathing? I gotta make sure I'm breathing, right? Because I'm just like, what a long breath. Oh, the episode's over. Hi, this is Juniper.
Hello, this is Elle.
Welcome again to our pod. And today we want to talk about a show that we both recently started watching. It's a Chinese costume drama, or a wuxia, which is usually a genre about, swordsmen and swordswomen with great kung fu who, wander around and get into adventures. This one's called Snowy Night, Timeless Love. And we're pretty much watching it real time, right, Elle?
Yeah.
We're both up to episode 14, and the show is slated to go for 32 episodes. So not the longest show, but not the shortest. And but we really wanted to talk about it because we feel like it's a great show and it deserves an audience, which I think right now it's not really a really super popular show in China, at least. And that's a shame. Anyways, how do you want to start?
Well, we can start with the synopsis if you want. If you're a high-level one.
Yes, it was really hard to give a synopsis. So the show is really a very slow burn show. And, I kind of jokingly said to Elle that really, if I had to summarize it, it's so far the story of a great swordsman who repeatedly gets injured and a famed female healer or doctor who repeatedly heals him. The end. I mean, because basically in the first 14 episodes, that's what happens. Repeat, rinse and repeat. So
right.
You're watching a show for plot, like meaning plot development, more than two characters. I mean, there are a lot of other characters, but the focus is really on the main couple CP, right?
Yeah.
This is not that kind of show. This is a truly slow burn. And I would even say for some people it's too slow paced, right? But we don't feel that it's slow paced because if you are into the show, it goes by so fast and you're like, oh, I want more. In fact,
right.
I want more right now because we have to record this pod, I'm missing out on catching up on today's latest set of episodes, and I feel like something's missing from my life. So I'm going to have to miss some sleep later maybe and just catch up. So that's the show, but I'll expand on the synopsis a little bit more, but basically it starts out with him coming to this, doctors or medicine valley that the healer, the female famed healer lives in, right? It's a super cold place in the snowy mountains, and kind of getting her to look at a very ill baby. No relation to him other than that it's the baby of his sort of elder martial brother that he supposedly killed or caused the death of, right? For good reason, not for any ill reason. And then the widow of this is the son of that brother and his widow, who is actually also our Melding Huozhanbai's Marshall's sister, right? They grew up together, and I think it's implied that they used to be sweethearts, or he could have been a sweetheart with her, but they didn't end up together.
Oh, I thought he crushed on her. I didn't know it was reciprocated when you say sweetheart.
Yeah, so in the book, by the way, I cheated and I started listening to an audio version of the source novel, which is called Qi Yue Xue. That's the Chinese title of the show, right? And the novel, Qi Yue Xue, which means for, I think the way I would translate it is 7 snowy nights. Or 7 Nights of Snow, which is much more poetic, by the way, than the official title, Snowy Night, Timeless Love. Like, it's a bit long-winded. Like, what are you trying to say, yes? Yeah, in the book, as I'm like 2/3 through, it's he definitely liked his martial sister, but he didn't marry her for reasons yet to be revealed. And I think that's why he is so fixated. Well, that and to compensate for the fact that he killed her husband and his own sworn blood brother. Not blood brother, but sworn brother.
But in the drama, he doesn't kill him though. The blood
Everyone
brother.
thinks he killed them, or
Yeah.
it's to him that the guy died.
Yeah, everyone believes that he killed him, but he didn't actually kill him.
Right, and I'm sure there's a plot twist. Whenever there's an elder brother who dies, there's a plot twist, just so you know.
So I would say when I started watching this, I had no prior experience with either male or female actor and actress, and I just saw pictures that looked very moody, and we were both saying it looks like a very nice, cozy winter kind of feel. But as
It's
I
not on my radar. The trailer got me. Remember, I texted you.
Yeah,
and I was
you
like,
told
I want to
me.
watch this. It's coming in 2 days.
Yeah, I was like, I've never watched either one, not on my radar either. But once you start watching it, and you know, we have talked about how slow burn shows, if done well, you're okay with waiting for the romance to
You buy
bloom.
the romance and the coupling and the chemistry.
Yeah. And I got sucked in right away. I think I started watching it and I'm like, oh my god, there's 4 episodes. I'm gonna start like binging them because and it's a very I would say plot wise, it's in the beginning, it's a very simple plot that they basically pulled across many, many episodes, right? Like if you were saying, let's watch a show about a guy who's just on a quest to get these herbs to make this, medicine for that baby. You're like, that is not the most exciting thing to watch. And the thing is, that's not really the focus. I mean, they do show how hard it is for him to get these herbs, and it's implied, even in the first 14 episodes, it's taken him years to get each ingredient. But the focus is not on the journey. It's really on when they meet again, like, because she's basically this doctor that lives in this snowy area where she's inside of I don't want to call it cave. It's like a rock, a cavernous area that supposedly fantastically has 4 seasons.
Yes,
so she's able to live there.
Otherwise, she'd be dead because she's susceptible to cold. She would die.
Yes. So there are hot springs and there's life, there's flowers, there's medicinal herbs that can grow that they can gather and harvest. And so she is able to live this life, and she also has these female attendees that work with her. She trains them. I think her goal is to teach them medicine, and so they can in the future work as healers like she is. And she's kind of created a very legendary status for herself because she lives away. She's not involved with what she calls like the martial arts world. So she doesn't really care who she's healing as long as they have the money and the token. Oh yeah, there's like these 10 tokens that
she only treats 10 patients.
Yeah, she treats 10 patients a year, and it's very expensive. Like you need like 100,000 taels of gold. So her price is very high, but she's supposedly also very, very good at her job. So there are people, so she's become very mysterious. And so like with him repeatedly returning because she has somehow agreed to take on this case, this patient, which is the baby who doesn't live there. He gets strong enough to leave. So it's just the swordsman who returns in hopes of creating this medicine. When they do meet, I feel for them. I'm like, they're reuniting again, and then
you look forward to them being together, even though every time they get together, they like bicker.
So in the beginning, she's a very prickly personality. She's very curt and blunt, like not in a mean way. It's just that she's very, if you want to think in modern sense, she's very clinical. She's just there to be a doctor. She's not there to understand your feelings or worry about your backstory. She's like, I healed you, you can go. Like, why are you still here?
She's got her own hard childhood background and her own things to worry about, right? Which he makes up for it, though. He compensates for her prickliness by being this earnest puppy dog, basically. Yes. It's weird. Like Joseph Zeng, is not an actor that I'm a huge fan of, at least not previously, but I've always liked watching him on screen. Mm-hmm. I didn't really care for Li Qing, not because I have anything against her. I just didn't watch her in anything other than Joy of Life, really. And her character is kind of weak and underwritten, like as the female lead in that. It's not her fault. It's just kind of a throwaway character. So I didn't really have a strong impression. And she always felt like, and she is older than him in real life. She's like 7 or 8 years older than him. Like she's like, I think he's like 27, 28, and she's like 34, right? Or something. So you would never, I remember I think I told you, I was like, never in a million years. And I said it like 5 times, but I have thought these two would make a good romantic pairing. But it works. Like his earnest puppy dog shtick, it's not a shtick, but just the way his scream persona comes across works for this character. But he's also, from the other shows I've watched him in, I've seen a couple of them, he's somehow mature. Like he's become more handsome in some ways. And I would not say it's because he's actually changed. It's just like the essence of him in this story works. There's like a boy side to him, right? Like sometimes he's like super manly. You're like, oh my god, swordsman, hero, wow, like knight in shining armor. And then others is like, oh my god, what a schmuck, but what a cute goofy schmuck.
Right. Well, so I mean,
he works with him, right? He doesn't. Me, I feel like they have very good chemistry. I know people who say, "Oh, they don't have chemistry." I'm like, really?
No, I think they have very good chemistry. It's a different kind of chemistry. I mean, I could tell on screen that she is a little older than him, but I wouldn't have guessed that much older.
Yeah,
I think he. So like I said, this is my first time watching him. I've seen him in other things. I think he played. He was in that Heavenly something Dragon Saber. Yeah. He was in the remake, but from one of the original TVB ones that aired in the 80s. And so I was like, oh, so he's the remake kid. And I saw him, and I didn't really make note of it. I wasn't watching. My in-laws were. And then I saw him, I think I told you, in Line Walker Bullfight, which was like the third Line Walker movie. And so that was a big deal for him because that was like a first Cantonese speaking role. And so I don't have a deep impression of him other than clips of him. And so when I'm watching him here, I would say, even though he looks boyish, he is a very confident, boyish, like
he's a man. It's not, he's a grown man.
He's a man.
He just happens to be young.
Yes, he's not boyish in like a I need help kind of boyish. like even when she's like verbally not very nice to him, he doesn't take it to heart. He's just unfazed by her. He's just like, yeah, whatever. I know you. Like he's not hurt by her words. I feel like when you see boyish, sometimes those characters can take words and like, oh my god, how can you say that to me? Yeah,
he can take it. He can take it and brush it off because he knows he's man enough, basically, in that way.
Yes, and he's confident in himself. He knows he's capable, right?
Yeah,
of protecting her.
Yeah, so I think one of the compelling selling points for us is the chemistry and the romance, which is very slow burn. And I'm just, let's just caveat that a lot of people probably know from reading the synopsis online for this that it is actually a sad love story, and you can even feel kind of the pathos in a way, in the way the tone of the show is, right? Like there's not necessarily always sad things happening. In fact, a lot of it is pretty lighthearted and sometimes fun, right? There are a lot of those moments. But in general, you're like, there's a pervasive mood of like pathos, I would say, or forlornness to come. And I think it's kind of, their love is going to end tragically if it follows the source novel. And normally I'm not one to commit to a show that, especially a romance, where I'm like, oh, it's gonna be a sad ending, right? Yeah. For some reason, I don't mind it. Like I watched this show with like joy, even though I'm like, oh, it's so good to be sad, or understand what's wrong with me. And I know when we said let's talk about the show because it deserves spotlighting, we both were struggling with, well, how do you talk about the show? Because like you said at the beginning, if you told someone like what the show is about, we're not sure what it's about. There's not much of a plot. It's not a typical wuxia in the sense of like, oh, you expecting lots of fighting? No, it happens. And when it happens, it's very well shot, pretty. Like he looks great, right? As that type of hero. But most of the show is just them in the valley bickering or interacting, or him being healed and with his shirt off, of course. But, still. It's really just about the mood. Like it puts you in. It's what was the word I was using? It's hypnotic. Like if you buy into it, it's kind of hypnotic romance. You're just kind of like, when I watch it, I'm like, am I breathing? I gotta make sure I'm breathing, right? Because I'm just like, what a long breath. Oh, the episode's over. Okay, take another long, deep breath. Next episode.
Yeah.
Like that's
No,
what it feels like.
it's I think I was telling you that the setting, it's so pretty to watch. Like it's like if you think about like, oh, just it's just setting in snow, but like the way they film, the way they put the sets together, even though a lot of it is CG, but I think they must have filmed some of it on location because
Oh
of those
yes.
trees. Yeah, some of those trees
I
when
have
you know
something
he's
to
on.
say about that after you're done. But go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. Yeah, like parts of it you can tell they filmed on location somewhere, but it's just so beautifully shot. Like I mean, and I don't know how to explain that because beautiful is such a almost simple term for how they kind of created this world where even though you know it's this martial arts world, you're sort of set away from it, right? You're situated in this little like land where it's untouched. It's untouched and it's a safe haven for these people. And
A very
actually,
cozy feel.
yes, cozy is a very good word. Yeah. And
Appropriate for the weather. The season here while we're watching is almost winter, so it's a very appropriate time for us. Like it's like you know how when like winter comes, you just want to snuggle up with a good book by the fire and just kind of immerse. I feel like that with this show.
yes, yes, and they make use of the snow, like in the scenes where when she was collecting the rootless water and they're talking under the branches, and there's snow fluttering everywhere, or when they're lighting lanterns along the way, like when he lit the lanterns to guide her back so she can walk back in the dark to go back, and
That was so
like they
so
just
sweet.
so sweet. And then when he was my favorite scene, the hairpin scene when he remember his fourth brother had a crush on her when he came to visit and bought her that gold hairpin, and then he's like, that's too gaudy for you. She's like, oh yeah, what kind of hairpin would you put on me? And he used the white plum blossom tree behind her
yes,
and then he was eyeing her he's like, oh, that's perfect, that's what you should have, like a white jade hairpin. And I was like, it's such a silly thing, but that is romantic. That is very romantic, between two people having this conversation, using the nature around them. And it's shot in a way where you can feel it coming from both sides, and but they're not aware of it yet, right? They're not aware that they like each other, but they're just having this conversation that is actually quite flirtatious.
Yeah, and I bet you the show, for the whole show, I mean, we'll know more once we finish the show. I bet you they never kiss, right? Because the story is basically in the book, it starts at the end almost, it's just if you follow the source story, it takes over the span of 8 years for him to find all the herbs, all 5, and come and kind of finish his quest, right?
Yeah.
It takes him 8 years to do that, and then it's kind of that's when they realize or begin to realize they really love each other. The show so far, from what I could tell, following the book 2/3 the way through, is they took elements of what happens at the end and sprinkled it throughout the beginning to show kind of development of their feelings more overtly. I don't mind that. I'm sure there's probably book fans who are like, oh, that's not what happened in the book. But it has to work for a show like this, right? Yeah. You can't start at the end and be like, oh, I just realized I like you, that kind of issue. So I do like that it's sprinkled throughout, and there are all these moments, like you said, they're just memorable in their very sweet way, but they're not overtly what is it, on the nose? Is that I think is what the saying is, right? I mean, when she's healing him and he's like, oh, too close for comfort. I mean, I don't know about you, my heart was fluttering. I'm like, oh, how does boyish Joseph Zeng play this so well, where you're like, oh, I can feel the kind of nervous tension, right?
Yeah.
I think on his part, because I think when they show that with him the first few times it happened, I don't think she has yet overtly shown she likes him. That's the thing. They never see it from each other directly, but we, the audience, in their own
even the people around them.
Yeah, everyone knows that they basically like each other, but no one's gonna say it. They're like, oh, you'll figure it out. I'm like, please, no one just tell them. Someone drop a clue or 5 on them, please.
Especially her attendants, like they know her, right? Like they
Yeah.
know, like they're like, oh, she makes so many exceptions for him because remember remember how expensive it is to heal
Yes.
for her to
Yes.
heal, and so now he's actually racking up like a tab, like a
Yes.
debt, and I love how every time it gets to the point where she's uncomfortable. She was like, "You owe me a lot of money. Like, when are you paying this tab off?" And he's just like, "I have no money." She's like, "Well, why do you keep coming?" He's like, "Well, I don't know. Just keep adding to the tab."
I like it. It's like, just add that to my tab.
Yeah, and like she would never do that for other
No.
patients, you know?
No.
Like
Well, she does kind of say it's because, your face is still salvageable. Like
yeah,
basically, like, it's still good to look at you. So, and she has a reputation, right, for liking good-looking people.
yeah,
In
yeah,
fact, the first exchange at the door when she met him the first night was kind of very bantery in that sense, right? Where she's like, "Oh, you're good looking. Let me take a look at you." And he's like, "Oh, you must be the famous doctors." And he's like, "Oh, no, well, because you're famous for liking good looking guys."
yeah, yeah. Do you
So,
remember that when he was trying to cure her in the water and
oh,
she
yeah,
slapped him and she's
yeah.
like, "It's because you're ugly." He's like,
And
"What?
he's like,
I
"You
was
didn't have to insult
handsome."
my looks." Like, he
He's
knows
like,
he's good looking. He knows he's good looking.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, and then there was one other thing, like every time she sends him away, right? In the beginning, it's like, all right, be gone, right? And then over time, every time he leaves, like she gives him a little bit more, like, oh, here's some medicine in case you get hurt, so I don't have to heal you. And then the last round, I think in episode 14, she gives him a horse, she gives him like gifts for people that he cares about. She gives him like even like a whole box of medication and so like like I was telling you that she's very prickly with her words as well, but her actions will say that she cares very much for him. She's worried about him. She hopes he returns. She doesn't know if he's gonna make it. And oh, you know the other thing though. So one thing we didn't talk about is that those 5 ingredients they're not 100% a cure. It's like
well,
they
he doesn't
mention
know
that.
that.
Yes, they
Their
mention
whole
it's really to give
story is
hope.
based on a lie. She
Yes,
basically
yes.
prescribed the lie to him to keep 3 people alive, right? They say that. Him
Mm-hmm.
alive, the mother alive, and the baby were now
Yeah,
alive.
yes. So every time he's leaving, I think now that she realizes she has some iota that she has feelings for him. There's also this guilt and a fear that she's
Yes.
sending him to his death because he has to go through these arduous journeys and
He doesn't want him to
obstacles.
go. I think
Yeah, she
already,
doesn't want him to
right?
go, but she's also sending him to danger, right? Because these are ingredients that are either in far-flung locations or they're very protected by an opposing martial sect. So you
Mm-hmm.
basically have to fight a lot of other people to get your hands on that ingredient. So,
I think,
you know,
but that's also the reason I think she's also fallen for him because he's in some ways on the surface they're so different personality. He's so sunshiny, right, sunny boy.
mm-hmm,
She's like
yeah,
prickly and sickly girl, but really they're very similar in that. I wrote this down as some themes in the story so far are really about fixation or obsession. She's obsessed with the boy under the ice. I call it
yeah,
Titanic Jack. If you watch the show, you know why I think that. There's enough room on that stupid ice block, whatever. Um, who died for her, basically rescuing her from the village she was staying at, right? When it was
mm-hmm,
destroyed. So she's fixated on learning her medicine and being the top of her craft so she can maybe one day revive him from cryogenic whatever state that she put him in under the ice. But really, he's dead. And in fact, Huo Zhanbai, our hero, is the first person to say it to her face because he's too dumb to realize. And also, he doesn't know the context. He's like, oh, why you keep staring at the dead person? It's, he's dead. And she's like,
yeah,
actually, that was a very memorable moment for me in early on when she yelled at him. She's like, get out, get out. Like,
yeah,
how did
yeah,
you could tell the heartbreak, the kind of desperation of denial that she does not want to face the fact that her young childhood friend is dead, like truly
right,
dead. And this man is
yeah,
telling her that.
mm-hmm,
So anyways, I digress. But yes, like it's about obsession, fixation, and guilt. really that's part of the pathos, I think, in the overarching theme of the story. It's not just about the fact that their love story, more likely than not, if it follows the source, is going to end with one of them dead, right? Like what could have been but not happened. But yeah, sorry, I do want to get back to, by the way, something I said earlier that I said, remind me to get back here, which is when you said the visual or the setting, right? It's beautiful scenery. Well, they did apparently market the fact, or it was well known when this was shooting, that they went on location to Xinjiang, into the Altai Mountains, Tianshan, to shoot this. And they were like, people were like, but when I first watched the first episode, remember, I think I texted you, I'm like, I'd like to show, but man, the CGI is laughable. Like the visual looks so like fake, and a lot of it was really bad CGI. I do think the first episode or 2 episodes is a disservice to the overall show, because it's an adjustment. If you're used to the very slick CGIs of most costume dramas these days from China, this is an adjustment almost like a decade back in some ways, like stagecraft kind of. And you're like, what are they doing? And where's the real scenery? Like, this is all so fake.
Yeah.
But now that I'm into it, I'm like, the real parts are great, like you said. The real mountain, the snow is beautiful, but you feel bad for them because they're like freezing when they're shooting.
Yeah, it's probably really cold. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was sick in some of those like real shots. Like if you watch the BTS, I'm like, man, the poor guy. But he's like a trooper. And they have to shoot this all day long in that sub-zero like temperature, right? So who knows? He might have gotten real frostbite, I think. But with the fake stuff, when they shoot it on the soundstage, still works for me, because then they can stage those moments, like you said, with the branch, right? When he juxtaposes her head, with the branch behind. Oh, that looks nice on you and stuff. The fake moon when they're drinking under the tree, it works. Like there's something very artistic, aesthetically speaking, to like a fake scene you would buy on a fan, like a Chinese fan, to it. So if you are someone who's just watched this thinking, I'm gonna give great CGI, do not be put off by the fakery. It is an adjustment. And then when you get sucked in, you just don't care. It doesn't feel fake. And actually, visually, I feel like, I don't know if it's me, and I've seen other people say this, I feel like the male lead and the female lead, especially the male lead, because the woman always strikes you as very beautiful, right? Even on the very first time you see her. But he comes across as very kind of maybe more youngish, right? When you first meet him. I would say in the recent episodes, he's becoming more and more, for lack of a better word, beautiful. And it's the way they're dressing him too. Like there's one, he wears a lot of white, but interspersed or with blue, more often blue than any other color, sometimes red. There's one costume, I think in episode 13 and 14, he's wearing, it looks like a watercolor.
The black?
No, it's white with blue, dark blue, like patterns on the fringes. Yes. I'm like, that's a look. That's a whole look. And then you get the fur that they're wearing. And I'm just like, he looks really good. A million years again would have said Joseph Zeng is like a looker in that set. He's cute, like a baby, but right? But somehow it works in the film. Like, is it because I'm so into the show and their story? But I think no, they're doing something with the visuals too.
Well, because time has actually passed too, right? Like
he's growing. He's
years. Years have gone by in the story, and in the beginning they don't announce it. It's not like where they're like 1 year later, 2 years later. It's not. It's more subtle. Like they'll show the baby. The baby's suddenly like 2 years old, 4 years old.
Or they mention it passing, like 4 years ago or 3 years ago when you were here first time. You're like, so much time has passed.
Yes, and it's funny because he has no money and. And like supposedly he was gonna be the chief. Remember, he was in the beginning. He was gonna be the chief of his sect, but then somehow that kind of got wayside.
He didn't want it. He didn't want to.
He didn't want it, and then his other brothers are like, "Oh, we'll hold down the fort," But there's no real chief, right? Like the original chief is still there, but he didn't take on the role that he wanted him to take. So It's been interesting watching because it's almost like, oh, I guess if you have important things to do, you can just go do it. It's not like a commitment to the sect, which is also very different. So yeah, they take a lot of it's interesting how the author took this universe but made it something a little different, right? Like it's like, okay,
So
this stuff
intimate.
exists.
It's
Yeah,
it's a big universe,
yes.
but intimately shown. At least in the way the show has chosen. I think in the book it starts out already with more immediate, broader universe action happening because it's at the end, basically.
Yeah. One thing we didn't mention is that there is a second male lead who, so far in the first 14 episodes, has made very limited
He made a few moves on the chessboard, okay?
appearances.
But
Yeah,
he has nothing to do. I get it. They have to introduce him earlier on for a dramatic show of like a TV drama, whereas in the book, right, if it starts at the end, it makes more sense. Like he just comes in at the end.
Yeah.
But he's good looking with the blue hair or not, Smurf head or not, you know. It's what's his name, FOMO, right? The actor.
Yeah, it's FOMO from Lost You Forever.
And honestly, he looks good. He looks here. I think he looks better here. Something about the white. You know, they can carry off the white look, all of them.
Yes. I mean, it's interesting that she got paired with two younger men, right? They're both in their 20s. I think the actor who plays Fulong is even younger than Joseph, I think. But yeah, it'd be interesting because they haven't yet actually had an interaction. Like his interactions, they've all been like they play chess, but they don't meet. They haven't met.
She doesn't know what he looks like.
Yeah, she doesn't know that she's playing against him, but he knows he's playing against her. Yeah.
Yes.
Which in a different story would be very romantic as well. Yes. Actually.
Yes. So
right? If you didn't have a Joseph character, you'd be like, that's very romantic. That they're meeting.
Right. There are people online on Redbook who go, I ship the second like guy with her. Because there's no second CP, okay? There's the main CP but then some people go, it's really the story of her and four men. Well, who are the four men? The dead, Jack substitute from Titanic under the ice, her childhood friend, the male lead, Huo Zhanbai, right? Mm-hmm. And then, and by the way, do we have to mention her name? Her name is Xue Ziye, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that was a random detour. I just want to make sure I'm like, do we say her name? Anyways, so that's two down. Third guy is the second male lead, really. Second alive male lead, which is the blue-haired Funlun guy, right? His name is Elle Feng. He's from the evil sect, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a fourth guy or third male lead, which is the guy with the blue eyes, Tong. His name is basically Eyes, right? Tong. Yeah. Because, and I think we already know that he is a kind of a long-lost childhood friend from the same village, and she's gonna wanna, when she knows that he's alive, she's gonna want to do something about that. Right, I think that's pretty much implied. And actually, that actor looked familiar to me when I saw him. He came pretty early on too, and I looked him up. I'm like, oh, it's because he's Taiwanese, and he was in the very famous Taiwanese BL movie with the other actor who was in Oh No, Here Comes Trouble.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Well, they're all handsome men, don't get me wrong.
Very good looking. So it's her and four men, but it's not boring. It's slow. I can't say it's a fast-paced show. So again, if you're looking for fast-paced, twisty, turny plot device, this is not the show for you.
So now that you mentioned this four men, I mean, really three men, because one of them is gone. But like, if you compare this kind of four men to Lost You Forever,
that's exactly where I was going. Yes. I would say all four of these men are much more at the Shangliu level of engagement. Well, three men, the one that's dead really doesn't figure much.
He's more of a memory. Yeah, he's a memory and a hope. Yeah.
They're all interesting in their own right.
Yes. But it's not done in a way where they're like on top of each other and you're going to see her torn. Like for her being a healer is so important. I mean, there's many scenes of her just sitting there reading, which can also sound very boring, but that's part of the mood. That's part of the like that's like you said, reading a book by a fireplace. Like literally, she's reading these little books by
Not fast
candlelight.
forward any part of the show. And by any rights, if you diagnosed it in segments, you'd be like, oh, you can fast forward to this. They're just two people talking about God knows what, right? Or like you said, she's reading or she's walking, from point A to B and there's some snow and she trips, and you're like, no, there's dramatic importance in watching this.
It's by design. Yeah. So when you see her, right, because she has her own goals. Her backstory is very tragic, but she has conviction in her life. She has fortitude and she works hard to get to what her prime aims, if you will. And I think when you see this heroine versus the Lost You Forever hero, who started off actually also as a doctor.
Yeah.
Remember, I made fun of her for completely losing track of herself, right?
Yes.
It's actually nice to see this one played through, at least so far in the first 14 episodes.
Yeah, like even though the story dramatically in the show focuses mainly on the interpersonal dynamics from a romantic build-up perspective, you don't ever think, oh, this is only, like, these people only live to love. In fact, they do anything but love and tell each other they love each other, but it's not frustrating either, because that is part of I don't know, it's so good to be so denied in some way.
I was telling you that, and I didn't get into it, but like, I like that aspects of it is just showing people care about one another, right? Okay, so people are like, oh, why are you so expensive for a healing? But she actually takes the money and she actually distributes it back to like a local village, an orphanage. She education for some of the people there. So she is not, you can call her Robin Hood or whatever, but she's not stealing, right? She earns the money outright and then she's not
just greedy.
Yeah, she chooses how she's going to use it, and it's to keep a stable life for her own family and the attendants. And the other aspect is like, so at the beginning when he first starts visiting her, like he goes by this little inn and you would think, oh, he's just passing by, it's not important. But then every time he passes through, like he gets to know these people, like there's they have a wedding, they have children, he will like bring back them wine, bring them, some sort of gift, and then they, reciprocate, and you see him building relationships with these people who are not part of the story, but it helps build up the whole, like you said, I don't know what pathos is, but like the whole
realism of the story universe they're in some ways, and how they are as people by showing them interacting with other people.
Yes. It's not just like a one-off. Like it's like, oh, there's relationships built as he's doing this journey back and forth, passing by this other village, right? That's not the village she's treating in. And then when she starts being more involved in his life, that's where she starts gifting. I mentioned, like she started giving him gifts to give. So in the last, like the 14th episode, she gave like a jade pendant to the newborn baby. And he's like, oh, this is very expensive. Like, it's obviously a very expensive gift. But she doesn't never met these people. But she knows they're important to him, right? Because they give him a stopping point on his journey. So she involves herself that way. And you're watching this relationship build and expand. And you don't see that very often in dramas.
Because the show takes its time only focusing on this. And I'll probably have more to say once I finish the book too, right? To see, is it because it's a show choice or a book choice? So far, I would say it's more of a show choice. The book is actually, it feels a little bit more manic in the sense of like, when they're talking about this person here, over here, the action here, what's happening to them. And then it's like, because they're not always in the same frame anymore, because it's happening at the end of the 8 years. Whereas the show is now taking its good time building up that, at least between the two main people. I'm very curious how they're going to handle we're pretty much halfway through, right? Of the 32 episode run. How the second half is going to pan out. Because if it follows the book, they'll eventually have to part right after he finds all the herbs. And they'll never meet again if you follow the book. Like, they were going to, I think, but they don't. Because she will die.
Yeah.
And, it'll be kind of like, oh, love and loss, right? In some ways. but she also goes out of the valley with the second male lead, and she interacts with the third male lead, like, the two assassins, basically.
Yeah.
There's more plot to come, I think. And it'll be interesting if she does spend prolonged periods of time away from the main male lead, how to see what dynamic they tend to build up between her and the other guys, especially the blue hair guy, second male lead, because like you said earlier, if there was no main 或展白 in the show, it could be a very romantic story, right? Too, with this beautiful man with the blue hair who is your mystery chess player buddy.
Yeah. It's like a secret pen pal, but not.
Yes. So I can't wait to see how they take this to fruition. I don't mind the pacing. I mean, I highly encourage anyone who is maybe dissuaded from checking out the show because either they think it looks very fake or that it's slow, to really give it a chance. You do have to be very calm.
Yes.
And patient. But I don't think you need a lot of patience to be like, oh, once you make it through this episode, you'll get good. No, it's not that kind of show. It is basically like meditative to watch the show.
Yes, that's a good word, meditative. I like that, yeah. I would agree that it's not, even though we call it a slow burn, I wouldn't say it's slow to watch, right? Things are always happening. There's always
actually
things
feel
happening.
Really short for me. I'm like, it's over? What? 2 episodes a day already done? Right? I never feel like that, even with like some of the faster paced shows, Sometimes like you're like, my God, that took forever. Like with Lost You Forever, at some point I'm just like, oh my God, I need to fast forward. They're still plotting.
I think it helps that the side characters, even though they're not deep characters, they're also, and they're not memorable, like you're gonna name that person and remember them. But I think, like I said, it's the world building. The world building has been done very successfully so far, where you buy into this little place out in the middle of nowhere where it's cold, but you see people living, functioning, like having relationships, and it's nice to watch. And occasionally they'll pan to other parts of the world, but the primary focus is in the Medicine Valley where she's working, and it's like he's and there's a line somewhere, I don't remember which episode, but they imply that to him that's become his home because he didn't. I think he's been so out there in the universe. They're like, "Oh, you're going home," and he's like, "I guess it's kind of like home." Like it's not,
if you think about it.
Yes, they're all orphans. Sadly, all of them are orphans.
It's wuxia. Everyone is an orphan in wuxia. Otherwise, you don't make it as a wuxia. You'd be part of some rich family or a poor family. You're either farming, or you're in politics, or you're doing merchant stuff, right? Otherwise, you go fight. Learn the kung fu and fight.
So it's kind of interesting how she formed, her own family, and he's kind of settled into her family too. He kind of comes and goes. I mean, the first time he broke in, but
yeah, I would like to see how they handle the end of the story, like, because I said the book starts there, and then you do see some of that forlornness, right? Like where she realizes he thinks he's never gonna come back now, and she's kind of loath to see him go, but she's not gonna do anything or say anything because I think she doesn't feel like she's in a place to any position to say that. But he very quickly, I think, comes to realization that I think it wasn't a doubt in his mind that he was gonna come back. Yeah. Right. So that's good. Like that's how I feel like I'm not sad. Even though I know the show likely will follow the book and end sadly. Although I do have to question, iQIYI is showcasing this on their love, what is it? 3-on theater?
Yeah.
Which usually showcases like romances, but much more, not always lighthearted, but at least happy ending. Like 超人, right? Love between fairy and devil was in that showcase. So I'm like, are they gonna change the ending, or are they just saying the show is so romantic, even if we know it's gonna be a sad ending, it deserves to be on this? Like I'm curious how that's gonna fit the mode.
Maybe they'll just make it open ended.
Someone said that they shot 2 endings. I don't know how much that is true or rumors. I mean, honestly, I don't mind the sad ending to follow the book because I think I would be still satisfied with the show because I got my enjoyment from the journey, right?
Yes.
They lived a full life in some ways as imaginary characters so far. I don't need them necessarily to like, oh, it's only fulfilling if they end up together. No one dies, right? That's not how life works. In fact, we all die.
In the future, hopefully.
It's the fact that you meet each other and you've had these meaningful relationships and you realize that it was meaningful. That matters more, right? It stays with you. It makes an impact. But if they manage to do a rabbit out of the hat and make this a happy ending, heck, why not? Like, I want to see that too, right? Like, give me two endings. Some shows do that. There have been shows who do like a bonus episode where it's like an alternate ending. Once we finish the show, definitely would be interesting to kind of revisit this, right? And look at it more holistically and to see, did it land the ending? How did it choose to land the ending? If it landed, and then maybe do a more full-on comparison of the choices the drama made versus the source novel.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. I'm gonna try to read it. I only found one translation website, and they just started translating it, so I might not get as far as you. But I already know from the prologue how it's gonna turn out, so it'll be interesting to compare.
Oh, and there's a prologue that tells you how it's gonna. Oh, because it's basically like what, like.
Yeah, basically it was like it's been 8 years. I think like the first paragraph, it's been 8 years, and now it's blah blah blah, and you're like, oh. So just to clarify, in the novel's supposed to span 7 days, which is why the name of the novel I think is Snowy
7 nights of snow. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously they didn't.
What a lovely name.
It is nice. Yes, but it's funny because her name has the word night, and then 7 is his name.
But they do that with all these Chinese shows, right? With the costume.
They always take one name from one word from each name.
It's like that.
Yes.
Xiaolanhua, and his name is Dongfang Qingcang, so Changlangje. Of course, you don't know that if you only know the English title. And Love and Destiny, was it Love and Destiny? I always get that confused with Love and Redemption. But Love and Destiny was Chen Xiyuan, and I forget the Chinese character's name in that, but the god's name was Jiu Chen, so it's Chen Xiyuan.
Oh, okay. I didn't see. I didn't know that was a thing.
Always look for that. They tried to play and take a character from the two main characters' names and put it. Now, the author might have like.
Does it make sense though? Does it always?
Yeah, I don't know if it always makes sense. Okay,
because in this scenario, it does make sense. 7 snowy nights is how I translated it in my head.
I think in Chen Xiyuan, it's just like the destiny or the entwining of their destinies of these two people. So that maybe is how they do that one. And then Changjue, honestly, I think it means the parting of Chang and Lan. Because they do technically have to part, right? If you think about it.
Like the end. Yeah.
To end something, to cut it off.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, this one was more obvious
for everyone.
Between Cantonese and Mandarin.
Yeah, like, I don't know how you and I actually understand each other half the time. Good thing I went to ESL with Cantonese people. Oh, speaking of Cantonese, so I think you mentioned that something about Joseph. So you don't forget to mention that. But I want to say that watching this reminds me of the old TVB costume dramas.
Oh, yes.
And even the costuming, the look he has, and the hairstyle reminds me of like Cho Hung, Michael Mew when he was Chu Shang. I was like, and the all white. I was like, oh, this brings back memories, right? And the big scenery too, because they didn't have great CGI in the 90s and the 80s, but
those were some real
stories. They were
real
well
fake.
done.
Those are real fake scenery.
Yeah.
Well, I was telling you, I was like, the more I watched this drama, the more I felt like Joseph Zeng's acting reminds me of TVB. And I don't know. Okay, so you said how do you explain that? Like, what does that mean? And I don't know if it's because I have decades of TVP watching. Some of his mannerisms, like even the way he reacts to her when I watch it, I'm like, that's like a very TVP actor reaction. And I don't, I can't,
like
I can't pinpoint it because, like, because when I watch Chinese dramas, there's a very specific way people act or behave. I mean, I know they're reading a script and they're acting, but like, there's some scenes when I'm watching, I'm like, that's such a Hong Kong Canto style of reacting.
Natural.
It's natural. I'm not saying it's stilted. I'm just saying when I watch it,
it's more natural than some of the mainland actors, because I think there's a much more theatrical aspect of acting in mainland dramas, especially when it comes to costume. Like, it's almost like stage acting, which is too much. Too fake.
Yeah, like when how she says a lot of stuff to him, like not usually not so complimentary, and like the way he reacts, like, or he'll like be like he'll like tisk at her, but like when I watch it, I'm like, that's not very mainland China acting. That's to me very TVB acting. And that's from years of watching like TVB costume dramas. And then I told you, I came upon an interview he did in Cantonese, and apparently he said he grew up watching TVB and Raymond Lam, because I guess he was acting in something with Raymond Lam, but like he was like, oh yeah, I grew up watching you, which was embarrassing for him because they're like, oh my god, we're so old. He's like, I grew up watching you. They're like, no, don't keep saying that. But I was like, oh, that might have influenced some of the even though it's costume drama, right? Influenced some of his acting style, because when I watched it, I was like, if he suddenly started speaking Cantonese, I would have been like, oh, it's like a TVB drama. I wouldn't think it was, out of character. But yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but it was just a feeling. And actually, because he knows Cantonese, it would be kind of cool to see him in some Hong Kong productions. Although,
well, he's gonna be another one as a guest star soon
in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
His Cantonese.
I sent you the link. It's good. It's actually very much more. So he does have a slight accent when he speaks Mandarin, and he does use his own voice in this. But it's a lot better in this, I would say, than it was when he was in Mysterious Lotus Casebook. I always get that mixed up. It's a little bit stilted, like accented, but it works in this one. It's gotten a lot better. So maybe he's been practicing. So kudos,
maybe he has
right?
like a vocal coach. Yeah, or speech coach. Because his Cantonese, I noticed. So I only saw 2 interviews. The first one he did, his accent was definitely more like Mandarin. Like it felt like he was just learning to remember to speak it. But then, like, I think when production ended, his Cantonese was much more smooth.
Well, he's been speaking it like with the natives.
He's been speaking it, but he was improving. And I think like it's like, like with more practice and exposure, you get better. So like, he could ostensibly do Cantonese market. Like he can enter the Cantonese market.
Yeah, but it's a smaller market.
It's a very smaller market now. Yeah, it's not, unless he meets like some director and he does a film. It's not really beneficial. Although as a Cantonese speaker, I'm happy.
Right. I just think it's funny, right? Some of the more recent actors we've liked are both Cantonese speakers of some sort, right? Tan Jianzi speaks Cantonese in his own way too. So maybe something about the culture of southern China, right? It's a different cultural approach to this type of, or maybe what they grew up watching maybe is more TVB. So then their approach to acting. No, I'm serious.
The comedy.
The approach to how they come across on screen is much more natural to me, or maybe we're just used to it because we grew up watching that too, right? But I never, even when I was a kid, really enjoyed some of the more theatrical aspects of mainland Chinese drama, because I was like, oh, it's so acting. You know what I mean? Like, you know how I feel about that. I'm like, it's so, like Laurence Olivier was a great actor, but he was a great stage actor. He wasn't always the best screen actor because it was too much.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting theory that they grew up in southern China and had exposure to TV. Yeah, they would have exposure to TVB.
You know?
Are you natural because you grew up watching TVB? Meanwhile, people were listening to us like, what the hell's TVB?
Yeah, it's the main channel. It used to be, when we were growing up, one of 2 main channels that produced dramas in Hong Kong, right? Which was kind of more the main entertainment
source
vehicle for the Chinese diaspora for the longest time.
Yes.
But now,
Yes.
Hong Kong doesn't really have the budget and the entertainment industry of scale. Even the Chinese mainland actors grew up watching that. Like everyone grew up consuming that. So it's still like, it's like, golden age of Hollywood type of deal, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is what we remember. This is the good old stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So-
mean, even current Chinese variety shows, they always invite the Hong Kong actors
And
and
the
singers
Taiwanese
on.
ones for like the idol dramas, right? Like
Yes,
those
yes.
trends that China is all like onto used to start from somewhere else, like other parts
Yeah.
of the Chinese diaspora. So
Yeah, yeah. Even the character that Joseph Zhang played, the Jomo Gay, that's actually from a Hong Kong writer. Like it did not the source material is from Hong Kong, like in the 1960s. It wasn't even a China thing, but it became like
you mean Gingyong, wuxia?
yeah. Like that's it's interesting how it reverted back into the culture.
Yeah, that reminds me, and I totally agree with this, that some people are like, oh, him, like his character in this, in the lady, they could be Yang Guo and Xiu Longlei. So the Return of the Condor Heroes. And I was like,
should they?
I don't know, man, but they definitely will work as that, right? Because it is, I've told you this before, one of my favorite stories, right, from Gingyong about young student orphan who falls in love with his teacher, who's a very beautiful young girl who basically takes him in. And it's a forbidden love. It's one of the few wuxia stories of that sort where it ends happily. Because you realize that most people go, oh, wuxia's great. I'm like, yeah, but most wuxia's tragic. You do realize this, right? And wuxia is actually not about fighting. They're all about fighters, but it's about the fighters and their complicated interpersonal history and stories and the tragedy. Like one of my favorite wuxia stories is The Bride with White Hair. Have you read that or watched any adaptation? It's a romance. It's a tragic romance in some ways. They do not end up together.
Oh.
He forsakes her in some ways and then comes to regret it and tries to kind of atone for it, but they never get back together. Her hair turns white overnight because of him.
Oh.
That's why, yeah. It's a great story,
really
though.
tragic.
It's a very famous story.
Tragic.
Yeah. So, anyways, anything else? I mean, I look forward to the rest of the show. Can't wait. And can't wait to get back to talk about it after finishing the show and after finishing the novel. Which
I agree.
will be a challenge because, I mean, honestly, if we listen to what we talked about today, I don't know what we actually talked about. It's a mood. It's a but I highly recommend it. Mood. Yes, it's cozy. It's a like a salve for the soul too. I haven't said this before too. Like, hopefully I've thrown enough descriptions in here that gives you a sense of what it feels like to watch this show.
Yes, please find it on YouTube and click on it and watch it.
Is it all on YouTube, or do you have to have a subscription?
I
have a membership with that. Yeah,
I've seen it on YouTube, so I don't know if they haven't stopped uploading. They're just doing like one episode a day, though, not two. So
it's an IT show, so usually they don't give out anything for free other than the first 2 episodes. That's why I asked. I have a membership.
I think at least the first 5 or 6 are already out, and it's not done by iQIYI on YouTube. It's on Croton Media.
Oh, so that's even better. Yeah, then it'll be available. Yes.
So that's why I think it'll be more widely available. It's not limited on the production company's channel.
Yeah, so. And if you are now interested in Joseph Zeng, I recommend the 2 shows I watched of him. That's not this, which is one is High Venus, cute. In fact, I'll watch it again if you do watch it. Maybe we can talk about it.
Yeah.
And then
I'm gonna start watching that one.
The Mysterious Lotus Case book, where he is a very cute puppy in that one, and that's a great show. And also somewhat tragic wuxia, depending on your interpretation of the ending. But it's a great ride. And in fact, now that I say that, it reminds me, one of the co-directors of that co-directed, or at least directed this. Maybe that's why I like both shows. They are very, in my book, well done types of this genre, but in different ways of this genre, subgenres, I guess, in the wuxia genre.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anything else?
Nope. That's all I have for today.
All right. Talk to you soon then.
All right, until next time.
Bye.
你快點。
嘿 BB，快啲嚟睇西嘢雪啦！
哎呀，係粵語啊！